Put your hands together. Give a warm round of applause for Yvonne Healy. Transformation.
I didn't realize she was taller than me, but then everybody is. My name, there we go. My name is Yvonne Healy. It's Misha Yvonne Healy. In Ireland, they called me Itagajir, which means between the two worlds. And in America, they called me immigrant, and sometimes dirty immigrant. We came to this country when I was wee little. And inside our home, it was still like Ireland. We spoke Irish Gaelic in the home. We didn't watch that much TV. We would just throw open the doors between the hall and the living room and dance reels and jigs. And we had a lot of kids, so it was easy to find people to dance with. And my dad would sing. My dad sings all the time. He sings, he hums, he's always making noise. But I loved it. And he would kiss me on each freckle. And I was covered with freckles. Well, maybe not each freckle, but he would kiss them. And then we had this wonderful traditional home. And the thing is, when you have a traditional family, you don't know what's traditional, what's just weird. So after kissing me on each freckle, then he would lick my nose. But the best part was when he sat me down on a hassock and he would tell me stories. He would tell me one of those old Irish stories, and I had to repeat them, line by line by line, exactly the same way he had pronounced those words, exactly the same words. So, I'm going to ask you, repeat after me. Fado, fado, isfada, ashin. That means long ago, long ago. It was a long time ago. And that's how you start a story in Irish. And when I would learn the story and I would repeat it and sound it just the right sounds, he would smile and say, shin, shin, shinay. And that means that is that. You want to try that one? Shin, shin, shinay. Yes, that is that. But the outside world was different than home. And when I went to school, I had to be out in that world a lot. And I discovered that people were not always nice, and that I was very different from the other people in our little Western Pennsylvania town. My family was very different from them. And people would say to me, oh, look at you, you have the map of Ireland on your face. And I would go home and I would look in the mirror. And I would ask my dad, and he would just kiss those freckles and then lick my nose. Well, even though kids were sometimes mean to me, and they called me dirty, hey, dirty face, why don't you wash your face, wash those spots off? And even if they made fun of me because sometimes I used the wrong language instead of English, even so, I loved being in school, I loved to learn, but the best, though, was I got a day off. When I was in 3rd grade, I got a day off of school. The only people in school who got a day off of school were my older sister and I. And we got dressed up in our fancy puffy dresses. And we and my mom and dad, we drove that green Chevy into Pittsburgh. We went to the Federal Building. This was the day we had been living for years. This was the day that we had left our family, my grandmother, my uncles, and my cousins back on the other side of an ocean, and we were here alone so that we could become American citizens. And we got to that Federal Building, We had to go in one after another because my father wanted to make sure we each had our own papers, just in case Ireland ever declared war on the United States. And it finally was my turn to go in and take a test. No, I knew I was supposed to take a test, and I had studied. And the judge was sitting at this big bench in this big room that was all empty, and he was in black robes. And as a Catholic, I was used to men in black dresses. And he asked me to come close. And I could stand on his bench, and I could look out over this huge courtroom. And he said, "You have to take a test to become a United States citizen." I said, "I know, sir." And he said, "Well, all right. The first question, who is the President of the United States?" General Dwight D. Eisenhower. Yeah, that's how old I am. And then he said, "What's the capital of the United States?" And I said, "Washington, D.C." And he said, "All right, now, this question is tricky. Think about it before you answer." And he asked the question, and it was tricky because it was the only time in history that this answer was correct. It was just a few months, and the answer was 49 because Alaska had just gotten in and Hawaii was on deck. He said, "Congratulations, you've passed the test. You can become a United States citizen." He said, "You have to take an oath. You'll repeat after me the words." And I knew I could do that. And he said, "Some of the words are big words, but don't worry about that. Just repeat what I say. And those words just mean that you're going to be an American and you won't be Irish anymore." Nobody told me about that. Well, did that mean that I wasn't going to get any more stories? Did that mean that my dad wouldn't kiss my freckles and lick my nose? You know what? I saw a Spanky and our gang thing where they were taken away from their parents. Are they going to take me away from my parents? If I'm not Irish, how can I be with my parents? And they're going to put me in an orphanage and I'm going to have to eat gruel? That would be horrible. I was a very dramatic child. But I thought, there might be a silver lining. I bet when I become an American, my freckles are just going to fall away. So I repeated after him. And I felt kind of weird about not being Irish, but then I went to school the next day. And my teacher said, "Yvonne, come up to class." And Michael Reese, who sat in front of me and always teased me, he said, "Oh, here, let me take my pen and play connect the dots on your face. Dirty immigrant." And my teacher said, "Yvonne, stand on this chair and face the class. This is America. If you're going to be an American citizen, you have to become completely American. This is a melting pot. You must erase everything that is foreign about you. And you don't sound like an American." Now, sure, sometimes I said the wrong words. She said, "No, you have to harden your R's." And she said, "Tiger." Tiger? No, R. R. Rugged. Rugged? Rugged rock. Rugged rock? Well, she must have been getting frustrated, and I know I was, because all of a sudden the big, thick book was in her hand, and I was trying. And then the book hit me, and the book hit me again and again and again. And I cried and cried and cried and cried, and I couldn't stop crying. When I did finally stop crying, I started stuttering. And I wore long sleeve shirts and long pants to cover up my freckles, and I scrubbed my face raw to try to scrub them off. And when I couldn't, I just kept my head down so that people wouldn't look at me. Well, that was not okay with my parents, because that didn't make me look like an American, and it certainly wasn't an Irish value. So they put me in an acting class, which I thought was a pretty inventive solution. And I loved it. Oh man, I could speak clearly again. Of course I was using other people's words, but I could be anybody I wanted to be. I could be from anywhere I wanted to be from. I could be from Brooklyn. I could be from South Carolina. I could be from Transylvania. And I even learned how to pretend I was an American. I learned really well how to pretend I was American. I got rid of most of those edges, and I learned how to blend in, and I got so good at this, and I loved the acting and being other people that I didn't notice I wasn't being myself. And when I was a grown-up, I got into the unions, and by that point, I had learned how to cover up my freckles with makeup. And then I got the best role of all. I became a mother. And you know what? My kids gave me something I never imagined. Because you see, where my kids walked on the earth, that earth became sacred to me. Where they played in the water and the waves, that ocean became blessed. And I learned to love this land. And so I started telling them stories about this land. I started telling them stories about how this land came to be, how this country came to be, about this dream that there was in this country, the United States, and about the people who made that dream and are still making that dream, clawing bit by bit by bit to create a land of opportunity, a land of justice. And we are still fighting that fight, but we keep at it. And somewhere along the lines, I took them to parades, and we marched in parades. I took them to protests, and we marched in protests. And then in 2008, they took me door to door in rural Livingston County, the only red county in Michigan, door to door campaigning for a modern American hero. I was scared. And I told them stories because what happened then was that the country changed and the melting pot went away, and we had an American mosaic, like those beautiful mosaic stained glass windows that are right down the hall here. You should check them out when you're on your way out. They're beautiful. And the thing with the mosaic is that each different piece shines and is illuminated with the light, and we can honor each piece. And so I told them the stories of that American mosaic. I told them the stories of all those cultures that all of us come from, each of us. You had one, and you had one, and you had one. And the thing is that telling those stories changed me. Telling stories changes you. And I became an American. I also became a professional storyteller. Yeah, my husband, he got a job transfer to Michigan, and it's easy to bring a storytelling job around. It's a very portable profession. Low paying, but portable. And when we got out here, you know, the thing about transformation is sometimes it comes like a blinding flash of light, and you fall on the road in the dirt on the way to Damascus. And sometimes transformation comes in little clicks until all the tumblers fall in place and the lock opens and there is the new. So one of those clicks, I was sitting at my desk in Livingston County, and across my desk came this grant form from the Michigan Humanities Council, and it said, "What is unique about you as an artist?" I'm a storyteller. Well, you know, actually, there are a lot of storytellers here and here and here and here. I'm an American. There were even more. And then I thought, you know what? I can speak Irish. I can make those strange sounds. I know those stories that have been told in my family for hundreds of years. And I know the culture that Ireland comes from, and I know where our hunger and our prejudice and our violence comes from, and I know that there is a way out. And so I reclaim that part of myself I lost so long ago. Because I am an American, is meanach me. I am Irish, is éanach me. I am a storyteller, is shanachie. And as for the freckles, you get to be my age, and the word freckles sounds a lot better than age spots. Shin, 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 a. And that is that.
Yvonne Healy, Sin Sin Sine.